As Israel faces growing international isolation over its regional wars, President Isaac Herzog is set to visit two countries in Central America, Panama and Costa Rica, to boost ties. President Herzog's visit to Panama and Costa Rica reflects the importance of Israel's ties with countries across Latin America and the renewed momentum in Israel's relations with Central and South American nations. A statement from the Israeli Foreign Ministry reads:
And Deir el-Bala, Gaza Strip. With a weary expression, Saja arranges her few belongings inside the tent her fiancé Mohammed has prepared for their wedding in just a few days. There are two thin mattresses instead of a proper bed, a small cooking corner fashioned from wood and tarpaulin, and a makeshift bathroom that Mohammed also built from scraps of wood and plastic sheets. And Cambridge International Education, CIE, is facing renewed over exam security after its AS-level business studies paper was reportedly leaked online ahead of the exam. The paper, scheduled to be held today, was allegedly circulated on social media last night, triggering fresh concern among students. Reports said one of the three exam papers being shared online was Business Studies Paper 1, carrying the code 9609.
Differences between the judiciary and the government over proposed reforms to the Nikanama have been amicably resolved, with both sides moving toward legislative clarity to address long-standing legal ambiguities. The matter was taken up by the Lahore High Court, where Justice Jawad Hassan termed the issue one of public importance. The second edition of the Breathe Pakistan International Climate Change Conference, organized by Dawn Media, is currently underway in Islamabad. Despite contributing minimally to global emissions, Pakistan remains among the most climate vulnerable nations, underscoring the critical need for coordinated, locally grounded, and globally informed responses.
And a man accused of murdering 15 people in an anti-Semitic mass shooting at Australia's Bondi Beach is facing a raft of fresh charges. Court records released on Wednesday showed Naveed Akram is accused of opening fire as families thronged Bondi Beach for a Hanukkah celebration in December.
The ceasefire in the Gulf is 4 weeks old and showing its age. The US and Iran's determination to keep the pressure on each other has put it in serious jeopardy. This is a dangerous moment. The ceasefire opened up a chance for diplomacy that looked for a short time as if it might make progress. Americans and Iranians faced each other across a conference table in Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, but came away empty-handed.
And in the southern suburbs of Beirut, the neighborhood of Hay El Salom is barely recognizable. What was once a densely populated, lively community is now a landscape of collapsed concrete, twisted metal, and exposed wires. Homes have been reduced to layers of rubble. Staircases lead nowhere. The sounds of everyday life have been replaced by silence.
In November 2022, a photo emerged of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un with a smartly dressed young girl by his side, his daughter Ju-ae, strolling alongside her father in front of a towering intercontinental ballistic missile. She wore black trousers and a white padded jacket with her long hair tied back.
The road is mine.
So we're stuck here, says Ludmila over the phone from the rooftop of a fire-damaged house in southern Ukraine. People are trying their best to survive. Her frontline home city of Oleshki has, according to multiple accounts, been largely cut off from fresh supplies of food or medicine for months.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has arrived in Beijing for talks with his Chinese counterpart, Wang Yi. Amid tensions with the United States in the Strait of Hormuz, Araghchi's one-day trip on Wednesday comes a week ahead of US President Donald Trump's scheduled visit to Beijing for a summit with President Xi Jinping on May 14 and 15.
The National Electric Power Regulatory Authority has withdrawn around $42 billion in penalties imposed on the National Transmission and Dispatch Company, reversing a decision that had remained in place for more than 3 years over alleged violations of the Economic Merit Order in power dispatch. In its latest ruling, NEPRA said the continued withholding of funds from NTDC's use of system charges did not fully align with the intent of the regulatory framework. Dawn Media is organising the second edition of the Breathe Pakistan International Climate Change Conference in Islamabad today. Despite contributing minimally to global emissions, Pakistan remains among the most climate vulnerable nations, underscoring the critical need for coordinated, locally grounded and globally informed responses.
And every major city worth its salt typically boasts its own luxury area. New York has Fifth Avenue, Paris has the Champs-Élysées, and in Madrid, an area known as the Golden Mile stands out. Golden Mile is a network of streets located in the Spanish capital's Salamanca district, where some of the most exclusive clothing and jewelry brands in the world are concentrated. It is an environment that has attracted foreigners eager to invest in housing, and a large part of them come from Latin America. And barely a month ago, they were embarking on a voyage of adventure to some of the world's most remote islands. Encounters with whales, dolphins and penguins awaited. Landscapes of icy expanses, towering cliffs and rolling green hills beckoned. Now they are isolating in their cabins, trapped aboard a ship anchored in the Atlantic, taking what measures they can to shield themselves from an outbreak of a deadly virus. And Spain has granted permission for a luxury cruise ship hit by a deadly hantavirus outbreak and anchored off the coast of Cape Verde to sail to the Canary Islands. Spain's Ministry of Health said in a statement late on Tuesday that the World Health Organization had explained that Cape Verde in West Africa was unable to receive the 147 crew and passengers of the MV Hondius.
New Delhi, the chief minister of West Bengal, who was swept from power this week by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party BJP in state elections, said on Tuesday that she had not been defeated and would not resign in an unprecedented political twist. The BJP defeated Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee's Trinamool Congress, TMC, which has been in power in West Bengal since 2011, securing more than 2/3 of the 294 seats when votes were counted on Monday.
Pakistan has once again stepped into the centre of high-stakes diplomacy as US President Donald Trump a short while ago announced a pause in Project Freedom in the Strait of Hormuz after Islamabad's ongoing efforts to push Iran talks forward. Trump said the US would temporarily halt the region-wide naval initiative launched just days earlier to escort ships through the strategically critical waterway of Hormuz while maintaining a blockade on Iran.
As the monsoon season approaches, Pakistan faces a familiar anxiety. The memory of the 2022 floods and the 2025 flooding that again disrupted lives, livelihoods and public finances remains raw. The government is right to be preparing early for this year's monsoon. But preparedness, while essential, is not enough. Pakistan must now accelerate as a national priority the broader transition to a climate-resilient, low-carbon and inclusive economy. The science leaves little room for complacency. The world remains off course to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius dots. For Pakistan, the risks are especially severe. Warming in high mountain regions is expected to outpace the global average, threatening glaciers, downstream river systems, agriculture, cities, and the most vulnerable within communities. For a country whose livelihood, economy and food security are tied so closely to the Indus Basin, this is not a distant environmental concern. It is a direct threat to growth, stability and life.
And a year ago, Pakistan was engaged in a military conflict with India, dealing the boastful neighbour an internationally recognised clear setback. From the night of May 6 to May 10, the drums of war echoed loudly across South Asia as the nuclear-armed arch-rivals exchanged missiles, raising global alarm over the risk of unpredictable escalation.
Dar thanks Trump, Saudi and Turkish efforts towards ceasefire with India. Asif claims country has emerged as symbol of stability, guarantor of peace in the region. Pakistan's principled stance resonated. While world rejected Indian narrative for lack of credibility, Tehran maintains is Islamabad. As Pakistan takes centre stage in global diplomatic efforts to end conflict in the Middle East, key leaders have highlighted how the country made significant diplomatic gains and earned recognition at the international level after defeating Indian aggression last year.
And Vivek Ramaswamy won the Republican nomination for Ohio governor on Tuesday, putting the staunch ally of Donald Trump on a path to running the Rust Belt state. In unofficial results, he defeated Casey Puch, a car designer with an automotive-themed YouTube channel, for a place in the general election, according to US media reports. And United States President Donald Trump has said that Project Freedom, the US military operation to move stranded ships out of the Strait of Hormuz, has been paused temporarily. Trump made the announcement on his Truth Social platform on Tuesday.
By OpenAI COO's own admission last February, we have not yet really seen AI penetrate enterprise business processes. But for enterprise software giant SAP, whose stock has dropped significantly in 2026 in part from the SaaS-pocalypse, the issue is still front and center. On Monday, the European heavyweight announced its intention to acquire German AI startup Prior Labs for an undisclosed amount. Pending regulatory approval, SAP plans to invest 1 billion euros, approximately $1, 16 billion into the business over the next 4 years, to grow it into an AI lab focused on structured data, the tables and databases where enterprise information typically sits. Neuro has been granted a permit to begin driverless testing of Lucid Gravity SUVs equipped with its autonomous tech on California public roads, vehicles that will eventually be used in Uber's premium robotaxi service. But the Silicon Valley-based startup backed by NVIDIA and Uber says it isn't quite ready to begin. The California Department of Motor Vehicles, the agency that regulates the testing and deployment of autonomous vehicles in the state, confirmed to TechCrunch on Tuesday that it modified Neuro's driverless AV permit to include Lucid Gravity vehicles. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the initial U.S.-Israeli offensive in Iran, known as Operation Epic Fury, is over after it reached its objectives. We would prefer the path of peace. What the President Donald Trump would prefer is a deal, he told reporters on Tuesday.
Lucid Motors said Tuesday that it's no longer sure how many EVs it will build or sell this year as it navigates a transition to a new CEO and a company-wide cost-cutting push. The company said in February that it planned to build between 25,000 and 27,000 vehicles this year. That's far from the hundreds of thousands of vehicles that Lucid Motors estimated it would build and sell this year when it went public back in 2021. But it would have represented a significant bump from last year's figure of around 18,000.
And companies working on batteries, semiconductors and medical devices generate vast amounts of data, and much of it ends up scattered across spreadsheets and legacy systems, making it hard to use to improve products or understand failures. And San Francisco-based startup Altara, which just secured $7 million in seed funding, says it has built an AI layer designed to bridge these data gaps and bring fragmented technical information into a single platform. And the round was led by Greylock, with participation from Neo, Box Group Liquid 2 Ventures and Jeff Dean.
As Bumble gets ready for a big overhaul meant to win back Gen Z users, who are pretty over dating apps right now, its latest earnings still reports that paying users are declining. In the first quarter of 2026, Total paying users fell 21.1% to 3.2 million, down from 4 million a year ago. This has been the story for a few quarters now. However, during the call to investors this afternoon, Bumble has framed this as a deliberate shift toward higher quality, more intentional users. Arsenal has reached the Champions League final for the first time in 20 years as Bukayo Saka sealed a 1-0 win against Atletico Madrid. Mikel Arteta's side settled the semi-final's second leg with Saka's strike late in the first half at an ecstatic Emirates Stadium on Tuesday.